So tonight we're talking back to school. So hopefully I'll cover some things good for any new teachers today. Hopefully I'll cover some things that are good for our seasoned teachers. Hopefully I'm covering things for anyone, hi Dean, that's whether you're in the public system or the private system, or either way we'll be able to get into some things. We're getting ready to go back to school though. We're in holidays, but we all know teachers don't stop when we're on holidays. We don't have holidays, we just collect overtime. I'm going to Queensland in a couple of days, so I've been rushing to get a lot of work done, and I've seen some of my classrooms from the teams that I'm working with, which look amazing. I think the guy I'm talking about knows who I'm talking about. I'm hoping to con him into letting me do a video of his classroom because it looks amazing. But let's get into it. So anyone who's jumping on can join in at the moment. I've got my trusty notebook as usual. So I've made notes about the back to school topics, and Twinkle has been supporting my channel as well, which is called Talkin Chalk for anyone who hasn't been to it, and it's got some back to school videos at the moment, which will be in more detail than what we're covering tonight. But tonight I really want to draw your attention to the benefit of the Twinkle resources that you can get to help set up your room for this year. So let's get into some of my tips though for tonight. That way at least anyone who's re-watching this video later on isn't sitting there watching me do introductions the entire time. And this is really weird because I can actually see myself on the computer over here as well. So day one's coming up, and you want to get yourself ready, and the first thing you want to get ready obviously is just your personal stuff. You know, make sure you got your clothes ready, food prep ready. You don't want to be rushing around on the first day grabbing baked beans and toast out of the cupboard and then just scoffing that down at lunchtime. Have yourself ready for all of those things, and then that's one thing off the to-do list. You don't need to worry about that. If you're a parent like I am, you want to make sure that that weekly routine is in order. Make sure you've got your pickups and your drop-offs all sorted. Make sure that, you know, their clothes are in order if they're school age. My kids are this year going to be year 2 and year 3. So we've got new uniforms organized. Hi, Tanya. And just make sure your personal stuff. Sorry, I'm just getting messages popping up there. Sorry. So make sure your kids are all ready for school as well. And then that's another thing off your to-do list that you don't have to worry about. So that's a good thing too. Big thing I like to remember at the beginning of the year too is our sun safety. It's the hottest time of the year when we go back to school, and we always manage to forget things like our sun cream, our hats, when we're on playground duty. I have a, what's it called? Like a parasol, one of those Chinese parasols that I take out onto the playground. And I don't do playground duty very often. It's usually when someone was unable to do it and I've had to cover for them. So I'm just moving my light there because I can see it on there. So when I have to go out on a playground duty, I try and take the hat or the parasol with me. But those are often the things that we forget at the last minute, and then you're out on playground duty for 20 minutes or 25 minutes at a time, and then you're burnt for the rest of the week. So that's a little thing you might want to remember to pack in your teacher bag when you go this week. Before you get started, make sure you talk to your team, talk to your supervisor. You know, my team has been messaging me, just keeping ahead of what's going on, so that they don't go ahead and do a bunch of things that they then have to change on day one. So if you've got contact with your supervisor, which I hope you do, I hope you've got that good relationship with them, have a chat beforehand just to say, look, do I need a heads up about anything? Is there anything going on that I need to know about? You know, just to stay on top of things. I've got a big year ahead with 5 and 6. We've got all of those amazing things that happen with stage 3. So we've got the year 6 farewell, we've got t-shirts, we've got camp, we've got fundraisers that we need to do. So I want to make sure that we're on top of that beginning of the year so that we can just focus on really good quality teaching throughout the year, and then we can enjoy those wonderful things as they happen instead of just being rushed to get them going. So I know I've said before that you'll never get through the to-do list. No, we'll never ever get through the to-do list. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't make a list. It's always good to make that list and tick it off as you go, because it's that good reminder of what needs to be done. For me, mentally, having it all stored up here is just too much. I need to have it down there, ready to go, so I can tick off, so that I know I'm not forgetting anything. And then that helps me just mentally prepare to get things done. I don't expect to necessarily get through the entire list. However, I have got the list there ready to go. If you are new to a school this year, I really, really encourage you to, yeah, Billy, you're right, that to-do list grows, especially when you go through it. If you're new, one of the things that I found works really well is getting the map of the school. Every school should have one, WH&S, you need to have a map of your school, and learn the layout of your school. Learn where all the teams are, learn where the stages are, learn where the little things like the toilets and storerooms and, you know, playground duties all are, so that you get a nice, comfortable feel for where everything is in the school. It's good to let the kids know that you're new and to say hello and things like that. But if you're really lacking the confidence to, you know, even maneuver around the school or know where you are, that's going to be just another thing in your mind. So, you know, take the time, even if it's just half an hour and one of your first days there during the week, one afternoon, just have a wander and get to know where everything is. If you've been at your school for a while, go for a wander again anyway. I went for a wander around my school the other day with my kids, and I noticed little things like cracks in glass that I hadn't noticed before, you know, the rope on some things starting to fray, paint on, you know, handball courts that could probably be redone. Those are the little things that we kind of don't really notice every day when we're rushed teaching our class and doing everything we need to. On those first days back when everything is fresh and clean and everyone's in their rooms and ready to go, that's the chance to go around and go, what can we really refine and make look better? And obviously that might just be around your classroom. What could you look at around the space around your classroom to make it look beautiful, make it look inviting? Because parents will notice that when they walk in as well. They don't necessarily spend time in your beautiful classroom that you've set up. What about those things around it? Have you got window displays? Have you got signs up? Do the parents actually know what's going on in your room just by standing outside of your room? So that's a good opportunity for you to do that as well. The best place to go and visit though is your storerooms. Storerooms and the library, because at the end of last year, everything got returned. Chances are you had a stock take done. I can see Mary is on here. I know she used to stock take like crazy and she was very, very good at it. And that means that everything's back in its place. It's on the shelf. It's where it should be. So this is the chance to go in and find all of those good resources that you couldn't get your hands on it last year because someone grabbed them and then hoarded them all year long. So this is your chance to go in. Go and search through all of your storerooms, look at all of the shelves, and don't just look at things that are for your stage. Highly likely you're going to have a student that has needs either sitting above or below the rest of your cohort, and this is your chance to go in and get some of those really, really good resources that will work for your class. Don't hoard them. Take them back when you're done or share them with your stage. Be friendly. Sharing is caring. I'm just looking down at my notes now to make sure I'm not missing anything. I recommend on that first day just making sure everything looks really, really tidy. So even if you don't have everything in your shelves, even if you don't have labels on all of your trays or your magazine folders or anything like that, just make it look neat and tidy. If the kids walk in and the room looks organized and concise, then they're going to walk in, you know, just feeling comfortable in that room. They're going to be, you know, it's going to feel more inviting. If you've got the parents that like to hover, it's going to make a really good impression on them as well. Even if it just means just chucking stuff into your storeroom and locking the door and having your storeroom as a mess for the first week while you're sorting everything, then do that. Not a problem. Just chuck those things in there. But then make sure that the rest of the room that the kids are actually working in looks neat and tidy and organized, and that you know where everything is. Things will change. You know, I like flexible learning spaces if you've watched me before. So, you know, if those things don't need to have an allocated spot in the room. So I had some cube storage with wheels on it, which meant I could move it around the room any time of the day that I wanted. There wasn't that one spot for pencils in that corner all of the time. However, where it sat in that cube storage was still neat and tidy, and the expectation on the kids was to also keep that neat and tidy. And there's very clear ways that you can set up those expectations just in the first week. And the best thing that you can do to set up those expectations is just be really explicit and role model it. If you want your kids to be neat and tidy, you need to be neat and tidy. If you want those kids to be writing neatly, you need to be writing neatly on the board. So you need to really role model that as well. Hi, Dave. And Natalie's working as well. Hi, everyone that's joined us. I can see some more people have come on later. Keep contributing to the comments, and if you've got a tip for going back to school, share it in the comments, because Twinkle Australia are giving away a subscription tonight. We're going to go back through the comments and pick someone who has a really good tip for going back to school. Primary, secondary, preschool, university, wherever you're from, it doesn't matter. Share something in there, and we'll go back through the comments and select someone. I love the fact that I can see there's 30 people on here right now. 31! Hello, whoever is 31. I don't know who just jumped on. I think it was Antonia. Hi, Antonia. Okay, so we've just been revisiting some of the things that you can do to prepare to get ready for that first day, and those first things that you do when you get there. So I mentioned in some of my other videos, if you watch me on Talkin Chalk, that when you do your classroom displays, that you should just be starting your displays. And this is where Twinkl comes in great, because they have tons and tons and tons of resources that will help you start your displays. So things like titles, borders, word cards, things like that. So if you want to make a word wall with the alphabet, Alicia's got a very good point there. Get enough sleep, especially if you teach kindergarten. Coffee too. So Twinkl has got lots of those resources so that you can start a display. So I can see there's secondary teachers on here, my lovely team from the science conference committee, science maths, sorry, don't leave a section out, conference committee. They have, you know, all these different word walls and things that you can use for any grade. So if you want to set up a mind map or a brainstorm and you want a key word to start it off with, they have those things ready to go. They're ready-made, and you can just get them printed out and have them on the wall ready to go, so that when the kids come in or when you've got that activity prepared, they're the ones that actually complete the display with you as part of a purposeful activity. So they're contributing to it, and that's the main thing you want. You want the kids contributing to it. There's no point them walking in and going, oh wow, the teacher did a wonderful job setting up that display. I had nothing to do with that. But then when kids do it, they want to show their friends, they want to show their parents. Start the word wall with their names. Words add with the children in weeks to come. Oh, that's a good tip. Oh, and Samantha is actually sharing some of that on there. Thanks, Samantha. That makes it easier than me jumping on the laptop and showing it. Okay, if you're the person who's going to win that subscription, you'll see it all anyway. Don't forget, you can get on and go for free and get started that way. It's got really good stuff. Another thing that I think you should be doing in that first week, really that chunk of time that you've got at school, is really setting in place your goals for the year. I've been talking with some colleagues about my goals for this year, and I don't know exactly how that's going to pan out, but I've got an idea, because when I sit down with my principal, chances are she may have something else in mind for me. She might go, yep, that one's good, but really, I don't think you need that. I think you need to work on this. And you've got to be prepared for your supervisor to mention something that you're not prepared for. You may have a different supervisor this year that has a whole different perspective on what the team is going to be doing, and you need to be prepared to take that on board. Your supervisor is probably suggesting that for a certain reason, and we need to be prepared to accept that. But this is the chance that you've got to go, do you know what? This is what I really want to focus on this year. I've mentioned before, Minecraft is going to be a big one for me this year. And when I say big one, I don't mean big as in it's going to encompass absolutely everything that we're doing in stage 3. I mean, it's big for me because it's going to be me learning and mentoring at the same time. I'm going to be supervising it while I learn it at the same time. And I haven't really done it this way before. So I need to be a learner and a leader at the same time, which is why it's big for me. So that will be a big part of my professional developmental goals for this year. So when you're thinking about what you're doing, think about, are you enhancing something? Is it something that you're completely oblivious to that's brand new? I know there's a lot of people out there keen on learning more about OneNote. I just released that video today, and there's a lot of people coming back going, this looks really good. What do I do next? So that's where your learning goals come in. That's your next. That's what you want to focus on, and have those open conversations with your supervisor, with your principal, and keep in mind as well, is there a way that you can do that independently as well? Because this year is when our pre-2004 teachers are going to be doing accreditation. We need to start documenting our hours, which shouldn't be that hard. There should be a fair few there. But it also means now that schools are going to be eating into their professional learning budget for professional development and training. So if you can put something into practice that is not going to eat up massive chunks of your professional learning budget, your principal is going to be more likely to go, that's a great idea, let's do that. So, you know, work with your budget there. If you're the only person that wants to lead STEM and the only thing you've got in your professional learning is tons and tons of courses where you have to travel and go away and stay in a hotel, you're just going to limit yourself. So think realistically about how it can happen. Can you lead it? Can you be with a team on it? Are there other teachers that you can share in that professional learning with? And how are you going to go about it for, the duration of that year? Natalie's just given a tip about buying plain fabric instead of backing paper on your display boards. Doesn't get tatty and can be reused year after year, even if you put thumbtacks in it. That's a really good one, actually. And don't mistake the plain fabric for that horrible material. I don't even know what it's called. It's like the material that they use to make party tablecloths. I don't even know what that is. Is there a science teacher on here? Can you tell me what that is? Because it's horrible. It's that plasticky stuff that clings to itself, and you pay $2 to get a tablecloth, out of the party section. They have them around at Christmas time as well. I've seen people hang up that material and it rips like crazy. Don't use it. It's not worth the cheapo material. It's terrible. Another one though that's nice and thick is wrapping paper. If you can get wrapping paper nice and thick, that sticks up really well too. So that's a good one for your backing. Okay, professional goals. So let's move on to that first week of learning. Billy earlier on mentioned icebreakers. I think for me, icebreakers work really, really well when they're unique. I did a video on that one and I gave some examples. And if you want some, I can link them to you if you send me a message. But the unique ones like, if you could create a new superhero power, what would it be? So not asking the kids, what's your favorite superhero or what's your favorite superpower? If you could create a new one, what would you create? Really get them thinking, really get them talking. One of the other suggestions on there was, if your friend's underwear was showing, would you tell them? And it always gets a good giggle out of the kids. And this is good because you can do it K to 12, this activity, because it's not so much the conversation generated that makes it interesting. It's the reaction of the other kids to some responses. So the kid that says, no, I wouldn't tell them, their best friend would be like, what? You wouldn't say anything to me if my underwear was showing? That's so embarrassing. And then seeing that conversation develop from there. That's always really interesting. And then I say it to them. So would you tell me? Like if I was at the front writing on the board, would you tell me? And then picking the kids that go, yeah. That's always an interesting one. So the big thing with icebreakers though is you can't get them all going on the first day. There's just no point to doing that because you're just going to bombard them. If you can get your icebreakers sort of flowing across that first week or even the first 2 weeks, that's really cool because then it opens up those conversations. And again, I'm using that flexible space. So chances are Monday I'm doing icebreakers with these kids and they've had a conversation, but then the next day they're doing an icebreaker with a different kid. So it's that opportunity to open those things up, and they don't have to be done by conversation. Think, pair, share is a good thing. Getting the kids to draw it and sharing it is another way. Creating a mind map up on the wall with post-it notes. Post-it notes always makes everything fun. Samantha's just shared a link to some icebreaker game cards. Thanks, Samantha. That's in the comments there if you can't see it, guys. And, just doing it in a different way, getting on the computer, get onto Google Classroom and get them to answer it into Google Classroom, and then you can look at the answers on a collaborated sheet if you want to. It's the icebreaker itself isn't necessarily the main part. It could be what's happening around it that really gauges what you're going to get out of the class. And again, it depends on what grade you've got too. My cousin Matt's just come on. Hi, Matt. I'm trying to find a way to scroll through these comments there. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Steph. IOCE Google Classroom? ICE Google Classroom? I'm not sure what that one means. I'll come back to you, Steph, on that one. Okay. Setting up expectations. I spoke about that, about being explicit, being concise, and role modeling it. That's the key. And the thing is too, if you see that your expectations are slipping away, go back to the beginning, go back and reset those expectations and reset, modeling it to them, and just doing that for the class. You can't let that slip away. And that, again, K to 12, same thing. You've just got to be explicit. Okay, programming. Programming for Love Google Classroom. Thanks, Alicia. That's probably right. And yes, we all love Google Classroom. It's awesome. So programming when you go in. So a lot of schools have already got scope and sequences in place, which is great, especially for things like history, geography, and science, because we've got those units there, and you can modify those units really easily depending on where the kids are at, because we're looking at, in New South Wales, we're looking at outcomes that really focus on those 4 C's of learning now, those 21st century thinking skills. So those are easy to manipulate. The difference being with English and maths, obviously, is that we've got the progressions coming this year if they ever decide to release them, and that's going to guide a lot of what we do. I'm one of the earlier schools. I'm an early action for success school, so I'm going to see those progressions. I should be seeing them day one. I should be, because we're going to be tracking them and trialing, I think, 2 different sections. But the other schools will be using them in 2019 and benefiting from the mistakes that we get to make. So when we're doing that, though, it means we need to plan responsively to our student needs. So we need to look at where they are, look at the data, interpret the data, and make sure that it's valid and purposeful data, and then plan based on that. So we do about a 2 to 3 week turnaround on our programming and planning as it is. I want you to think of those first 3 weeks as the same thing. Those first 3 weeks, you're going to be responding to the fact that they're coming back from holidays, and depending on the school that you're in, my school, it's very likely I'm going to have kids come back who haven't spoken English for 6 weeks, or read a book for 6 weeks, or held a pencil and written something for 6 weeks. So I'm going to be making sure that they get back into those habits, that I can see where they're at, because those first 3 weeks aren't going to be where they're working at in week 4. They're going to be getting back into routine and getting back to those habits that they had at the end of term 4. So those first 3 weeks are a great opportunity to do a theme. And again, going to Twinkle, the best resources that I found in there on those first few pages was all of the Australia Day stuff. And I'm talking everything. I'm talking templates. There's PowerPoint presentations with really good quality PowerPoint presentations. There's history lessons in there. We're looking at the Aboriginal history that we've got. We've got the history of when Captain Cook came over and what happened there, and then there's so many conversations to be had around, you know, everything that's going on with Australia Day at the moment, especially with your older students. There's opportunities there to get into some really good debates, to get into our I'm forgetting the word of it now, our argument writing, persuasive, there we go, our persuasive writing. And Terry's asking about tips for setting up flexible seating in a classroom. I'll get back to that, Terry. When we get to the end, I'm going to go back through those and answer some of those questions. So I'm going to keep that one to the side for now. But I mean, if you've got younger kids, that's a great opportunity to do something like Dr. Seuss for 3 weeks, because there's lots of books there. It's really funny. It's quirky. There's a chance there to do art and craft. There's a chance for drama, for music. You could do tons of stuff there just on Dr. Seuss. You know what? Even stage 6, even stage 4, 5, and 6 can do Dr. Seuss for 3 weeks and really analyze it and get into detail for those things. And Steph is just commenting that Twinkle is terrific for all the wonderful things that are there now for Australian schools. I like the way that you mentioned Australian, because when you go into it, they split them up into the different states. So if I wanted something for handwriting, they have in there New South Wales version, Victoria version, Western Australia version, and then you just print the one that you want. That's it. Because, you know, apparently in one country we have, 6 or 7 different writing styles, but that's the way that it is, national curriculum and all. But there we go. Samantha's just linking the Australia Day activity booklet. Again, a lot of our classes are going to change too, guys, so you don't know if the kids that you've got now are the kids that you're going to have in week 4. You need to get bums on seats and check your numbers before you can do anything. I'm going to brag about my school again. K to 6, we don't have any more than 20 students per class, and that's because we're utilizing our funding to employ extra staff. But that does not mean that the teachers that we've got allocated to classes at the moment are going to stay there. Anyone could get permanency in those first few weeks. Anyone could get code matched. A permanent position might come up in the perfect school that you've been waiting 20 years to go for a position for, and you've got to go for it. Things happen, and we just have to modify. So you've got to be prepared for those changes to happen in the first few weeks. And by programming just for those first few weeks, you're saving yourself a headache down the track. There's also the chance too that you might get given a planning day. Doesn't always happen necessarily in the first week. So, Don't go in thinking that you know exactly what you're doing in week 9 of term 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Hi, Georgia. We've got a few more people coming on at the moment. 49 people at the moment. Wow. I suddenly got butterflies in my tummy. 51 people now. Okay. Next one. So, I'm just looking back at my notes. Sorry, I keep looking down because I'm looking at my notes there. I'm just checking the time too now. So we're at 8:30. So we're going about half an hour now, guys. So, moving over. The other thing that I think would be great to work on in those first 3 weeks is the growth mindset. Now, I'm a Class Dojo ambassador, so I absolutely advocate for Class Dojo and the positive benefits that it has. And there are heaps of growth mindset activities on there. And I'm kind of lucky in this way because the Twinkle stuff, resources that are on there really match well with the growth mindset stuff that's on Class Dojo. So there are videos that you can watch on Dojo and then little questions and think pair shares that you can do afterwards. And then you've got the Twinkle resources to back you up. So Twinkle has these really cool displays. I wonder if maybe Samantha might be able to link them. It's got a picture of the brain, and it's got like one side of the brain is grey and one side of the brain is this really nice rainbow color. They're gorgeous. And it has all of those statements on there that we want to reinforce with our kids. So those things that say, you know, instead of saying, I can't do this, it will say something like, I'm learning to do this, or I'm going to be good at this, or I'm trying hard to learn this. Those statements to reinforce that it's up there. And it helps you use that language as well because you can point to it and reinforce and use that language in the classroom. And these are not just things that are grade based. These are things that they could go in your staff room, for crying out loud. And we know that there's a lot of staff that get stuck in a rut, and they even have that fixed mindset sometimes about things that they can do. And using that language and promoting that language and just having the physical pictures up there is a great way to utilize it. Natalie's just asked me, do I use Class Dojo and Seesaw together? I haven't. I know other people that have, because even though they're kind of similar, they've both got very different functions and features on there. So I haven't had a chance to use Seesaw with it, and I'm not sure if I will this year, being off class in the role that I'm in. It might be something that I entertain this year if that's the chance that I've got with the kids that I'm working with. I'll see how that goes this year. I do know that Seesaw's got some great things, and I've seen other teachers using it, which looks really, really good. Anastasia's just said the first few weeks is great for activities on growth mindset, definitely. And Alicia loves Dojo. Alicia was the person that introduced me into Dojo back in end of 2011, beginning of 2012. And I started using it, and then after a few years of using it, I became a mentor, and then last year I became an ambassador. Someone's put up their sign today. So Nikki, my role this year, Nikki, is off class. I'm supervising stage 3, and I'm going to be a combination of roles. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of LAST, a little bit of RFF, and some mentoring in there as well. And this is really just going to enhance my capacity to be in classes, team teaching, demonstrating, or doing observations for my team, and just really getting, you know, into that role where I love working in classrooms, but it also gives me the capacity to work on my leadership goals as well. So I'm really looking forward to it because I'm the learning support team coordinator, and I'm special ed trained as well. So there may be a chance of me working in those younger stages as well, depending on what happens. So I'm looking forward to being able to go into classes and just really use that time to pass on any knowledge that I've got to those teachers that haven't had that experience. So I know a lot of teachers come out of uni without experience working with any special needs kids, or just kids with additional needs. I really do think it should be a core subject at university. Are there many growth mindset resources on Twinkle Australia? Yes, so I was downloading a bunch, and I can see Samantha is linking some stuff now on growth mindset. So you'll be able to go to those links and see that stuff. And Jeanette's just saying we have our APs off this year in similar roles for similar reasons. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to do it. When I first got my AP job, it was unheard of, really. We had the HATS teachers. Sometimes a DP might be doing that. Behavior management, I advocate for Class Dojo. And to give you the short version, Class Dojo is the best way to go from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. It's also got great things on there for sharing with parents, communicating with parents, putting pictures on the story, which is kind of like, it looks kind of like a Facebook news feed, but it's just for the parents that are linked in. So they get a code, they link in, they can see it. So it's not public for anyone to see. You still need to follow the same rules though about student publishing photos. So you need to have permission to publish photos to be able to put the kids on there. You can put their work on there though without their name or anything, so that's fine. So when the kids at home, they can go, look at the work I did today. That's fantastic. So, you know, those things are great just for various reasons. Dojo, I just like the fact that I have control over how the point system works that's on there. And then you can extend the point system to something in your class if you want to. You know, if your kids have got 50 points, they get, you know, however many class dollars or whatever. I don't do it that way though, and they don't need it. The whole point of it is to move to intrinsic motivation. That's what I want. So by the end of the year, I don't reset my points ever for the entire year. So the first kids that got to 1,000 points, which was about the beginning of term 4, they just got a certificate, a little bookmark that said, you know, 1,000 point dojo club, whatever it was. I gave them a fidget spinner and a deck of giant cards, the big giant playing cards. If you've seen my Clever Pickles channel, I gave them a deck of those as well. That was it. That's all they got. They, at 500 points, they got a pick from the prize box. When they got 1,000 points, they got that. That was it. That was all I handed out in the entire year for my entire class. So they don't need to be given prizes all the time. However, you know your kids, you know what they need. If you need to be doing a prize box every single week to keep that going and then build up to more of that intrinsic motivation, that's what you need to do for your kids. I was lucky with this year. What I had, the smiley faces, the stickers, the high fives, the verbal reinforcement was working. Billy's just said, I don't like when people take dojos away from their students. I don't. I never take points away. Last year, in the entire year, I took 2 points away, and what it was for extreme behavior, and one was ticked off for not following instructions and a timeout. So when I go to, wow, we just hit 61 people, 62. When the kids have that really high intense behavior, then I would take a point away, and I've never had to do it again. One student had one taken away, another student had one taken away. That was it. And you can display both the positive and negative bubbles. I never do that. I only ever display the positive bubbles. It's meant to be positive reinforcement. If there's negative reinforcement, I'm not going to display that to the class. That's going to be a private conversation between me and the student, possibly their parents, and it's going to be between me and them. Hi, Kate. Thank you. That's one of my old lovely colleagues from back in the sticks in the country, Kate Jones, saying she thinks I'm a legend. Thanks, Kate. She's a legend too. She's lovely. So yeah, I'm just going to get back to my notes again because I just totally got sidetracked. Okay, we talked about setting goals. All right, starting a learning journal. This is another thing that you could easily do in those first few weeks. And it's not a time waster. I guess if someone randomly walked in and looked at what you were doing, it would probably look like busy work, but it's not. So what I do is, can you later post a pic of how you do positive dojo? Yeah, Nikki, if you want to send me a message to remind me, I'll definitely do that. I do plan on doing a video about dojo. I did make a video before and then my sound all glitched and I just ended up deleting the file. So I'll do it again. Hi, Willina. And where was I going with this? Rocking Dan Teaching Man has just joined us. If you have not been to his YouTube channel, you need to, especially if you're on infants. He has amazing videos. I'm pretty sure he's hit over 1 million views on his channel now. And you learn through singing. It's lots of fun. Sorry, back to what I was doing. Learning journal. I was talking about a learning journal. So I get, what are they called? The plastic sleeve folders, the display folders they're called. There is always a sale here. I live in Campbelltown, so I'm near MacArthur Square, and I'm pointing that way because that's the direction of the square. If you're local, you call it the square. They always have a sale right before school goes back for all of their stuff, and I think it's, is it News Power? Whatever the news agents people are, they set up a stall up there, and they have everything amazingly cheap, and I get those display folders for like 20 cents each. I'm really not exaggerating because I go in and usually I only hand over like a $10 note or whatever, and I stock up on all of those display folders, and I usually try and get them in the school color. So where I'm at the moment is blue. It's like an ocean blue, light blue, blue. And then what I do is I have them at school stored in a tray. And then in those first few weeks, I get them to make a title page. I have a template for it. It's just got a box, name, and then date. And they have to draw a picture of themselves. And this is like in the first week. Sammy's just put up another Twinkle link to Growth Mindset Statement Display. Thank you. That's good. So guys, if you haven't seen any of those, and don't forget, this will be saved, so you'll be able to go back through the comments later and link on all of those things. So don't worry, and I can link them on my Talkin Chalk page later as well if you've missed them. Don't forget, guys, keep putting your comments on your best back to school advice, because we're going to go back through the comments and pick someone to win a Twinkle subscription. So anyway, sorry, there's just more comments coming through. It's a bit hard to see on my phone. Thanks, Billy. I'm glad to have you on my team this year, Billy. I totally forgot what I was talking about. The learning journal. Oh my God, this is like the third time I've gone with the learning journal. Okay, anyway. And then what I do is in the first term, across the first term, but usually in those first few weeks is good to do it, I get them to do some work samples. So I always put a writing sample in there, which is usually a recount of the holidays. Nice and simple. There is a reason I pick the holidays though. And then they do a handwriting sample, a maths sheet, whatever else you're doing. A couple of sheets to go in there. Usually 5 or so sheets is plenty to start with, because then at the beginning of term 2, I do it again. I do another handwriting sheet, another recount, and then like usually a different bit of maths, something else, whatever. And then you do that again in term 3 and then again in term 4. And it's so cool as the kids are putting these into their things, into their display folders, to go back and look at what they look like in term 1. Because sometimes they don't see their progress. And I do this with kids all the time. When they bring out something that's really, really good, I hold up the page and I go, wow, that's really good. Look at what you were doing back in term 1, and point it to them. I was like, your handwriting wasn't as neat. You had lots of, spelling changes and everything. Look how wonderful this is. And that just really boosts their confidence. So having the learning journal is just kind of like another way of doing that. And it doesn't have to be in their books. They love being able to pick it up and say, it's mine, it's my work. I can physically see the improvement in here. And then at the end of the year, that goes home. And what I usually do at the end of that too is I also print out a class dojo behavior chart. You get like a pie chart at the end of the year that shows all the things that they got points for throughout the entire year. So that's another thing I put in there. I also save space at the back for Premier's Reading Challenge certificates, Premier's Sporting Challenge certificates, Swim School certificates. So as the kids get these things as the year goes on, I don't send them home. I tell the parents I'm putting it in their learning journal so they can have it at the end of the year. My daughter brings hers home and it's always scrunched in her bag and it just looks terrible. And then they get lost at home. They get lost on the fridge here. I'm probably the worst parent in the world for that. I've got them all in a box ready to go. I haven't stored them yet. So when my parents, the kids of my students, the parents of my students, when I send their learning journal home, it's got that nice progression of their improvement. And there's no marking all over it. You see it naturally. You can just see that progression. And then at the end is all those lovely certificates that they've had all year long for those things. So, yeah, I think it's a nice idea, Nikki. I've been doing it, oh geez, I must have been doing it for about 10 years now. And the kids always love taking it home. It gets to the point where they get to term 4 and they say, are we going to do another thing for our learning journal? And they really like it. I kind of stole part of the idea when I was back at Lansvale. They did a progress folder and we had to put 2 or 3 work samples in, but they were assessed and marked and had like a criteria and everything in it. And, while it was nice, it didn't include things like, beautiful artworks and mind maps or sketches or just random things that they did that showed improvement. So one of the things that I sent home last year, 2018 now, was when the kids did a writing mind map on an elephant description. So kids, it was just the picture of the elephant and then the big description, sort of a brainstorm around the outside. I sent that in. It wasn't their neatest piece of work. It didn't have lines. It didn't have a date or anything like that on it. It was just that sketchy thing, but it was their learning. It was really, really good learning and they enjoyed it. So when they go home and take that piece of work home, they can actually talk about that piece of work because I know they really enjoyed it. So I like that idea. And yeah, kind of like the old portfolios, and I just modified a little bit to make it not so much assessment and marking based. I just wanted it to be about them and what they enjoyed doing. something you could work on in those first weeks is a letter home. And I know a lot of schools do a letter from the teacher. I really like the idea of doing a letter home as a stage with a message from each teacher, just because I want to keep it consistent. I really want my stage to be a team this year. I don't want it to be that everything is always different in every single classroom. Our classrooms should be different, and they should be unique to the teachers' personalities and their strengths and what they bring to the classroom. But I would like there to be some consistency as well across there. I want them to know that if a kid is coming out of one class and joining another class for maths groups, that they're not entering a whole other world that they can't handle, that they're going to enjoy going into that space and embrace that opportunity to be in that learning environment. So I guess I just want some consistency, being able to come across to my parents that way. So Kate's just said you do a stage letter. Any chance of you sending that through to me, Kate? I won't steal it. I'd love to see what a stage letter looks like. If anyone's got one, I'd love to see it, just because I've never done a stage one before. I've only ever been at schools that have done individual class letters from the teachers. I'd love to compile something together. I'd also like to see that communication going home to parents more regularly. We have a school newsletter, but there's never really anything direct from the classroom, from work samples. My own children are at a school where they update their website each term with a class letter, and it has pictures of the kids and what they're working on. It saves on paper because I don't send it home. They just put a notification out on the school app saying your class letters are now up. You can go and view them on the website, and I can go and look on it and print it off if I want to, or save the pictures if I want to. You've done stage letters as well, Vicky. Okay, good. Sorry, Vicky, and then Nikki is starting to set up a stage newsletter this year. Well, that's cool to see. I'm not the only one thinking that way. Jeanette's just said it's so nice to have this opportunity to just sit, listen, and share as educators before we start the new year. Oh, that's good. Do you know what? And the best learning sometimes that we get is just from each other. Whenever we go to professional development, I think the most we always take away from it is the chance to just talk to our colleagues and see what other people are doing. Terry used to do a year level newsletter twice a term. That's a good amount, not too much, but it's good communication with the parents too. And Sarah does a term letter to parents at the beginning of each term about topics and important information about the term. That's good, especially if you need resources sent in. If you're doing something where you need, like, lots of cardboard boxes or something, if you're doing dioramas or building a city or whatever, and you need them to bring things in, it's always good to have that communication instead of just that random letter home that says, please bring something in, because half the time it never gets home. That's always at the bottom of the bag under the lunchbox or something. Janet, yes, a communication book, especially for those kids with higher needs, especially for parents that can't be there in the afternoon to pick up their kids and you need to communicate with them. So I've been talking a lot about, the students and what you can do yourself. I want you to keep in mind your team, your teaching team that you're going to be working with. Those first few weeks back at school get crazy busy, like really crazy busy, to the point where we don't even pee. Like, we get to the end of the day and we're busting to go to the toilet just because we've been on the go all day long. And even when lunch and recess comes, half the time we're still going. We're still fixing up something in our classroom or spending time with the kids on the playground or doing something. So don't neglect your team at the end of the day. Anyone who's worked with me knows that most times in the afternoon I go and see my team. So the setup at our school is actually really good because we all come out to one communal area to dismiss our kids, and our kids know they have to go, mum's here or dad's here or auntie's here, before we say, okay, bye, have a good afternoon. And they go, and any leftover kids then get sent to a seat in front of the office to go. That is your chance to go and talk with your colleagues. That's your chance to go, how was your day? How did you go? Or let them know something that you did. It's your chance to debrief if you had a difficult day. Bottling that stuff up is not good. Chances are going to someone and then just going bleh and getting it out will make you feel better going home for that afternoon and then preparing for the next day. You may have some parents come up with you in the afternoon as well, and my team always had a few cues for each other. So if we knew that there was a parent that was taking way too long, it really should be off school grounds now, and they were just kind of gas bagging, the other teacher would say something like, don't forget you've got that meeting now, and then that would be the parent's cue to go. So just being able to gauge that is really good, and building up that rapport with your team. So if you've got someone new on your team, be that great role model. Go over and ask them how their day went, and, if they need to know where anything is or if they've got to ask anything. If you are the new person, don't be afraid to go to the people in your team and let them know how your day went. Sometimes it's not always easy to be the new person and be able to step up and go to someone and say, you know, how was your day? Or this was how my day was. You know, bridge the gap, break the ice. You can be the person to do that. And it's a good way to start off as well in terms of just being open to your team. You don't have to, you know, tell them your life story or anything, but just being open to one another helps us, you know, be those teachers that are able to collaborate and share in a good and positive way. If you're someone who has been at that school for a long, long time, you know how everything is happening, you're going to be the go-to person for those people. And sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming to be that go-to person, but, you know, try and see it as that positive, that positive way that people are seeing you as, you know, a guru of what you're doing. Oh, thanks, Bec. My other Bec from my other team. So, you know, giving that support to each other, that little debrief at the end of the day. Sometimes those debriefs turn into an hour of chatting, but, you know, you do whatever you've got to do. That's fine. I always try to do it with other teams as well. You know, I have a chat with my team, have a chat with another team, and that was the benefit of us all being in one space at the end of the day. It's great in terms of supervision for our kids, in terms of safety and knowing who's going home with who, because sometimes I would be standing there with this child going, where is the sibling? How come the sibling isn't over there? And then that teacher would be able to relay some communication that happened throughout the day. So just being able to be physically there makes a difference. Sometimes we end up in our classrooms in a bubble, and at the end of the day we just want to get stuff done and get going home. 5 minutes, just that 5 minutes is so great for building our teacher relationships and debriefing and helping. And it could be at the beginning of the year, could be at the end of the year. Sometimes there's a point where it could be something personal affecting someone else's life, and just having those 5 minutes to know that someone's listening, or that you can debrief, or that you can help someone, can make a wonder of difference. I really recommend to checking in with teachers from last year's kids. So there's a few lovely ones that I had this year that I think may have a bit of a difficult time at the beginning of this year. I want to go and check in with those teachers every day. I want to see what their behavior was like, what their performance was like in the classroom, what their effort is like, because I want to stomp on that straight away. I know what they're capable of doing, and if they're going to muck up for another teacher on day one, I want to stomp on that straight away, because I don't want that teacher spending the next 6 months trying to figure out what it is that will work when I've got this that might work, this that might work, and this that might work. They might not. Maybe it only worked for me. I don't know. It could have been that relationship, but I want them to know exactly what it is that could work. And same thing for the kids that that you might have had previous years as well. Just because it's been 2 years or 3 years since you've had that kid doesn't mean you can't go and check in with that teacher. We've got a lovely lady who's been at our school since she started teaching. I think she said it was 27 years. She's literally teaching the grandkids of kids that she's had before. She is a goldmine of information in terms of knowing about that family's history or their welfare needs or well-being needs when you talk to them, or if they've had family history of health conditions or whatever. And she doesn't treat it like gossip. If you go to her and say, I've got this kid, you know, you had the cousin or whatever, like, do you know what's going on? And then you find out that there could be a foster care situation, or that someone's parent went to prison or something like that. Things that we didn't really know that she has that knowledge about. So just because you didn't have that kid last year, you might have had them, 2 years ago, doesn't mean that your information has gone out the window. Natalie's actually getting on the point that I've got written down next, which is to call the parents in the very first week. She says, I introduce myself and ask if there's anything they feel I need to know about their child that will help me. Sorry, I've just got to click see more. In case there's medical or learning issues, you can discuss with their parents. We do a meet the teacher night. I can't remember when it's meant to happen, but we run it like parent-teacher interviews now. So that's that formal situation where they can sit down for 10 minutes and we can talk about those needs with those kids. But yeah, those first few weeks though, that's a really good chance for you to call and just go, yeah, we had a great day today. It's nice to meet you. That's it. So many parents just get the bad news phone calls all the time They never get enough good news phone calls. And this is your chance to do it right at the beginning of the year, setting up that positive expectation and just calling in and going, I had a great day with Johnny today. Yeah, it's lovely to have him in the class. It's nice to meet you. I hope to see you soon. That's it. 3-minute phone call. That's it. If you can do that across those first couple of weeks with those kids, with all of your kids, and set up a really positive way to start, it's just going to sit well for the rest of the year, and it puts them in a really good position to go, you know what, I've got a teacher that cares about my child. I want to support them, so that when the time comes to be asking parents to provide, support for you for anything else, that's your opportunity to do it. And that's a great way to build that rapport with them as well. It also means too that when it is time to make a bad news phone call, they'll answer the phone, because sometimes they learn our school phone number and then won't answer because they're just used to getting the bad news phone calls. So, try and mix it up a little bit, and keep a record of it. Always keep a record of phone calls that you make home. I recommend putting that in your diary, and noting down whether there was no answer as well, and just keeping a record of that so that you know who you've spoken to, how many times you've spoken to them, if there's a consistency with the phone calls or anything like that. Rebecca's just sharing Meet the Teacher templates with Twinkle, and another one that's on there as well. So for those of you that have come on later, I need to thank Twinkle for inviting me to come on to do this. They offered me, I had a free subscription with them, and they said, we like your videos, we think you're good at sharing information, we want you to do a back to school live stream, and in return they let me access the higher package on there to be able to see all those resources. And I'm not disappointed, believe me. I have spent hours and hours and hours just going through Twinkle, seeing all of the amazing resources. Again, the standouts are all the thematic stuff, the classroom displays, the fact that there's different styles in there for different states. So when it comes to handwriting, the fact that it can be segregated into the grades, and tying in with the syllabus is just fantastic. So if you're not on Twinkle yet, I highly recommend going on. If you want to start with a freebie one, do the freebie one. Did anyone have any specific questions? I think someone asked about flexible learning. If you're going to start flexible learning this year and you've never done it before, keep in mind, flexible learning does not mean furniture. Flexible learning is a pedagogy. It's a style. It's the way in which you teach. And the biggest thing about it is just choice. It's choice making for the kids. It's giving kids the choice. Flexible learning. So it's about choice, giving kids the choice. So even if you don't have gym balls, you don't have fancy cushions or chairs or anything like that, or milk crate chairs or anything, you can have normal stock standard tables and still run a flexible learning environment. So the point is the choice. If you have a name tag on that table that designates that child's spot, and that's the only spot that child is allowed to sit in, and it's based on your decision to sit them next to someone that they're not going to talk to, then they're not using flexible learning. First thing I did was take away the name cards. Guess what? Even in kindy, they don't need name cards on their desk all the time. You know your kids. You need to know your kids, and kindergarten is, we don't necessarily do. We've got a preschool though, so we've got the benefit of kind of knowing our kids, fairly well before they start, most of them anyway. If your kids need to learn to write their name, they can still have their name tag, a laminated name tag, that's fine. Have it sitting on the wall over there, and you go, do you know which name is yours? Go find me your name. They go and get it, put it down, and copy their name. Guess what? That name tag can then go back. That name tag does not need to dictate the table that they're sitting at. Billy says, find old furniture to fix or refurbish, and he is a legend. He turned an old pallet into this awesome table with red paint, and I'm not going to give it away because I'm still going to try and con him into letting me do a video on it. Put your own twist to your classroom. Yes. Billy's just going to be my leader in this. The thing is with that flexible learning environment, that choice needs to still be guided by you. So the rule is, if you are doing your best learning, then that is a great place for you to be. If you are sitting in a spot and you're chatting to your friend and it's not about your work and you're not getting what you need to be doing done, then that is not the best place for your learning, and now I get to pick where you sit. Or pick a second spot and give them a second chance. If they're still not doing their best learning in that spot, in that space, no, I get to pick where you work now. My choice. That's the rule. That's how it works. You get to decide that. So that can happen in any space. The benefit of having that furniture that goes with it is the versatility of the furniture. So if you saw the videos in my classroom, you saw I had ottomans, I had different size tables and chairs, I had lots of cushions, I used whiteboards a lot, I had the low chairs, I don't even know what they're called, but if you grew up in the 80s like me, they were the old library chairs. They're the low chairs that the teacher sits in. Those have been covered with nice material, so they're not ugly, and those are around the room as well with low tables. So picture the Japanese low tables as well. So the benefit of that is that it's easy to move. So having that space with those chairs, they were light enough for the kids to move. So if the kids wanted to work in that area over there, but they didn't like the configuration of the chairs, they could move the chairs around. If they weren't lined up in a good way to have a conversation with your partner, then they could move the chairs around. So that the furniture itself is not the flexible learning. It's their choice to move the furniture. That's the flexible learning. And same with the tables and chairs. I had a table that had stools around it, so they could choose to sit at the stools, but the stools were very light and they could be moved. So if the kids wanted to stand, they just moved the stool away. That's the choice. That's the flexible learning. The stool isn't the flexible learning. Their choice to move it is the flexible learning. The ability to be in a light spot or a dark spot or work under the table. I had kids working under the table. They wanted to lay down on their stomach and work on their story. Guess what? They wrote better that way. If I get that child up and go, you have to sit where I want you to sit, and you're sitting in this chair at this table and doing it the way that I want you to do it, they're uncomfortable, they're cranky that they're being forced into that position when they were doing their work in the first place. Why would I move them? I want writing out of them. If the learning intention was to sit straight in a chair, then I'd be telling them sit straight in a chair. So, and I know ideally people say that, you know, you've got to learn to work in a specific environment in a specific way. Guess what? I'm a teacher. If I want to lay down on the floor and use my Surface Pro, I will. That's my choice. It might not be the best choice. It might not look very professional, but that's my choice. Even our staff room is a flexible learning space. We have cafe-style chairs and tables on wheels and lightweight ottomans. We can move them into any configuration that we want, and it's a great way to work. I love being able to work with my team that way. We work in there and we go, oh, we don't like the way this is set up. Roll that there, move that there, let's work here. I want to go near the PowerPoint. Let's roll everything over there and move near the PowerPoint. Previous schools that I've been at, you get in trouble for leaving your coffee mug on the table. Like, that's just a ridiculous way to work. Like, that's not conducive, it's not positive, it doesn't engage me, it doesn't motivate me. Just having a staff room like that motivates me. I've got my learning space. I also have an AP office that I share with another AP. Last year I was sharing it with 2 APs. There was 3 of us in there in this office space. We have plenty of room. I still don't work there very much because the chairs in the other space are so comfy. I like looking out the light and bright window, and I like being able to work with all of my staff. Alice has just said clipboards are great for allowing students to learn on something whilst working on the floor. Yes, and I had the clipboards that were the foldy ones. They had like a cover, so if they wanted to, they could write on it, cover it back up and leave it there, and then come back to it later without worrying about being blown or trodden on or anything like that. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Is it Nisha? Had students go outside. We had outdoor learning space, have outdoor learning spaces as well. They're great with AstroTurf and picnic tables, and we had some chairs set up outside. And I took my class outside for, last year was Australia's first, I'm going to get the title wrong now, Australia's first National Outdoor Learning Day, I think is what it was called. If you hadn't heard of it, Google it. So that you can register for it, because they'll send you out resources and everything, and you go out for the entire day. We went out for the entire day and the kids loved it. It was interesting to see those resources that normally you would use inside go outside. And it was a slightly windy day as well, which was interesting. So it was really fun. We took all that stuff out as well. And having those spaces too, you can be inhibited, I suppose, depending on the environment that you've got. If you don't have enough shade, or if there's horrible birds around. We have plumbers. Are they called plumbers? I don't know if that's a nickname for them or not. There's magpies too, but they attack the kids. So you couldn't go out onto the oval very much without a kid running in screaming that they just got attacked by one of these horrible birds. So, you like the idea of a staff room doing this promotes the idea of practicing what you preach. Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing, and I love it. Flexible learning could be a whole video by itself. Yes, it could. I did a little one called Flexible Learning for Newbies. It was one of my earlier videos on Talkin Chalk, and it looks terrible because the camera's like under my chin, and it was terrible lighting, and I think I need to redo that because I still sounded really nervous doing my videos. Getting the students to plan flexible learning space could be a great first week activity. That is a great activity to do all year long. It's a great maths activity. So Terry, what I did was, I think it was about midway through the year, I got out some grid paper and we talked about perspective in the classroom and estimating space. So the kids had to draw what was currently in the room from a bird's eye view. So we all drew that in our own interpretation, and then they had to go away and create a new one. So the new one that they created had to be using the same furniture that we had in the room, so the ottomans, the low chairs, the cushions, the low tables and everything, and they had to rearrange it. And they all came up with different ones themselves, or they could work with a partner if they wanted to, and then we voted on the design that we liked the best, and then we rearranged the room together to actually make it work. And it was really good problem solving, because they looked at it and they would go, hang on a second, okay, I know on paper that table looks good over there, but it doesn't actually work in practice because we want that table for guided reading and our word wall is all the way over there. So what do we do? And then they had to problem solve from there. And it was great communication for the kids to be able to talk like that, and just team building. That's a really good activity, and you could easily do that once or twice a term if you want to, and then do it different ways. So getting back into DET schools as a casual, tips for teaching etiquette. First of all, it's not DET, it's DOE. Department of Education. We've changed our name again. It was DET when I started teaching 15 odd years ago. This is my 16th year teaching, Department of Education and Training. Then it became the Department of Education and Communities, DEC, and now it's the Department of Education, DOE, DOE. But in terms of tips for teaching and etiquette, being a casual is the same as always, and those old school values never go out of fashion. Go and say hello to the principal, introduce yourself, make sure they have your CV, make sure they know when you're available. At the end of each day, go and say goodbye to the person that booked you and say, I'm available tomorrow, or I'm available all next week, or I'm not available tomorrow, but I'm available on Thursday if you want me, because that person's going to have it fresh in their head for when someone calls in sick, and they will put it in their diary. When you come in, leave the room the way that you left it or improved on it. Don't touch other teachers' things. If they've got awards and stickers and things, don't use them unless you've been given explicit instructions that say, yes, you can use them. If they've left you work, leave it marked, and always leave a note behind at the end of the day. Leave a note behind that says what you did, how they did it, if there were any issues, if there was any outstanding behavior, so that the teacher can follow up on it in the next day. I highly recommend, like I said, go to Twinkle, log on, create an account, check out their resources. The subscriptions are worth it. Twinkle is also on Instagram. Twinkle Australia is on Instagram. They're also on Twitter, so go and check them out on Twitter. I am also on Twitter under Bec West 81. I'm on Facebook under Talkin Chalk, and my YouTube channel is Talkin Chalk as well. I'd very much appreciate if you go over and check out the videos and share them with your colleagues. It's always much appreciated. The feedback that I've been getting has been very, 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 very nice and positive. And I want to thank everyone for supporting this. I want to thank Twinkle Australia, especially Samantha, who reached out to me to give me this opportunity to talk to everyone. I would love to come back again and do it. We reached so many people today, so that's amazing. And all of your comments in here helping each other as well is fantastic. So I'm very grateful to have you all here and supporting me. And I wish you all the best starting in term 1 this year. I think this year is just going to be amazing. I've got lots of exciting things to share that I'm not allowed to share just yet. So hopefully once term 1 starts, I'll be able to share those things with you guys as well. And I'll see you guys all later. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.